what to worry about in our current retirement climate. Then we're also going to talk about 20 life events that we may want to discuss with people that we trust in our planning circle. That and so much more on this week's episode of Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them right here in Seattle. Elevated Financial Management. Check out the website. It's a nice resource for you. EFMNW.com. All letters. EFMNW.com. Links to the TV show, radio shows, and podcast form. Again, great information on retirement. Really good resource for you. EFMNW.com. Between these two, 42 years combined experience in retirement planning, helping their clients get ready for that retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure to go back and forth each and every week with the guys. And speaking of, before we dive in on our current retirement climate, how was the week? Casey, let's start with you.
Oh, it's been great. Yeah. Again, great weather. I mean, unseasonably nice weather. I can say that I honestly don't really plan on summer starting until we get to like July 4th. But so far, we've had a really great start to the year. I mean, just
May
tremendous.
and June.
Yeah. The Mariners are they're working on it. They're trying, right? They're doing their best, right? And we're still rooting for the home team, right? Like we always do. So that's coming together, and it's great. I mean, the car shows are happening. I'm a big car guy, right? So there's lots of car shows going on, and get to see some fun stuff rolling around, and people are out on their motorcycles, and no, things are going really good. And we got to go to a pretty cool event. Maybe it was last week or the week before, down in Phoenix, and there was 20 other offices from across the country, and a mastermind of sorts.
Yeah.
And we go to these a few times a year. It's really important to us, and we always have fun, but at the same time, man, we just spent about 2 full days really digging into how we can do better, how we can help our clients better, how we can make things more efficient around the office, what we can do from a client service perspective. And Mark and I just came away with a lot of great ideas and things that we can implement. And so we're working really hard to just try and improve in what we do. We get to play a small part in people's retirement. Sure. That's really exciting for us. So, lots of really great things going on right now.
Yeah,
Right, Mark?
just to piggyback Casey a little bit. Yeah, the Mariners are top and center for us this time of year. But as Casey mentioned, Phoenix was wonderful. We really got some cool ideas and ways to think about how AI is changing everybody's lives. Now, in our industry, it's going to be fairly quick. We're seeing things right now, but we had a wonderful meeting this morning with our team here, and we just want our listeners to know we care about what we do, and we want our listeners to know that we care about them, and that the planning that we're trying to do is trying to keep them from learning from the school of hard knocks with so much stuff that's going on in the world, and people not knowing really where to turn or what to do.
You're locked into, again, Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management. And, trips like the Phoenix trip, and we've talked about this before on the program, it's like continuing education for you guys. Mm-hmm. You get together with some of the brightest minds in retirement planning from around the country, and you all get in a room and you start talking about how you can do the business better. That's just an added bonus for your clients.
Yeah, that's a huge part. All of these offices want to improve, and they just love. What's cool about our team is everybody wants to share ideas. They're not worried about one team stealing another person's idea. We're in different offices around the country, so it's really going to add to our clients having very unique experiences, something they're not used to, and that's really what the goal of these type of meetings a couple of times a year is to have us improve so that we can be better and more knowledgeable with our clients.
Well, Seattle, you heard them. It's all about getting you ready for retirement, having that plan. And one of the really neat things this program does is it sits down during the week, and they come across articles that really are generating a lot of talk in the retirement planning business, and we talk about them. You're going to have questions about your own retirement situation. We're going to give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. And the appointments that we open up are no cost and no obligation. We'll tell you about those as we move through. But, gentlemen, the first article you brought to our attention, what to worry about in this current retirement climate. And I tell you, there's a lot going on out there.
It's funny you mentioned that, Morgan, because right now there are some pretty smart people in this industry that believes that a perfect storm really is brewing. And what do we mean by the perfect storm? Well, we have to still worry about interest rates rising. Now, the federal debt is something we've all heard about. I mean, we're over, $36 trillion now?
37, yeah.
Yeah, 37. I mean, that's a number that you can't even really fathom how big that is.
That's not a number to be proud of.
Yeah, no. It's not, right? And what's being proposed right now in the tax world is some pretty significant cuts, aggressive tax cuts, right? Some of them want to get rid of taxation of Social Security, which I kind of agree with big time, not taxing tips. But all of this stuff isn't dealing with the big problem, debt. And so if we don't get a handle on this some way, somehow, it's going to just, Casey uses the illustration about throwing a rock in a pond. And I like it because the little ripples, and these are going to turn into waves here pretty soon. They're not going to be ripples anymore, right?
Tidal wave,
yeah. It's going to be a tsunami. And that's what is a little bit worrisome in our planning. So we're trying to help our clients put together plans that are going to be able to deal with some of these waves that are going to be coming. Because if you don't, you're going to be caught unaware, and it's going to create a lot of stress and anxiety because you waited and you didn't want to deal or talk about any of these things, and it's going to backfire.
It is, yeah. And it's really interesting, right? When you think about this, the article made this point that in 2024, the U.S. brought in about $5 trillion in revenue, but spent $6.8 trillion, resulting in a $1.8 trillion shortfall. Man, if we managed our personal finances like that, nobody would ever give us a credit card again, right? And it's interesting when you think of it in that context, because the reality is when you look at the country, our debt keeps going up, right? So, yeah, I guess we're making the minimum payments if you want to, correlate that to consumer debt, right? We're making the minimum payment, but we keep going back and asking for an increase in how much debt we're allowed to have. Can I get an increase on my limit on my credit card, right? And at a certain point, that has to stop. Now, the difference is that when we go and ask, we're asking somebody else, right? We're asking Capital One, or we're asking our bank, or whoever it is, right? And they can say, no, we're done, right? We're done with that. Yeah. But when the government asks, they're really kind of asking themselves, right? So they're going to get a yes, right, when they want a yes. But I think the point here is, how does that affect you as the retiree? That's really what this comes down to, right? Is they can do whatever they want. We're not involved with those decisions, and we're not making this a political thing at all. That's not the intent here. But the intent is, how does this type of action, how do these types of actions affect you as a retiree? And the big concern here is that ultimately they're going to have to deal with that debt at some point. So are you prepared? Are you tax efficient? And that is something that has to be built into an overall broader plan. You look like you had something to say, Morgan.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Mark said, and it goes right in line with what you just said, Casey. I mean, you've got to prep your clients. They've got to be ready for it because it's coming. There is no doubt about it. The money is going to come from somewhere,
right,
and it's going to come from us.
Yeah.
So if you're not planning for it, it is going to be a total shock to your retirement.
And this is one of the things, this article focused on, the second major bullet point, is that neither side has a plan to pay off one dime of the debt. Okay, neither one. They can blame each other, but neither one of them are coming up with anything that's going to help the plan and the debt overall. That's the scary part, right? And Casey mentioned, and you just said it, Morgan, if we don't do something now and face this bad tsunami that's coming and build a wall, it's going to catch everybody off guard. That's what we want our listeners to really be thinking about. Do you have a plan that's going to address this.
It's interesting because, we, like you mentioned, Mark, right? Both sides are kind of like pointing the finger at the other. And it's the same as a husband and wife standing in front of a judge talking about the debt that they have. And they're each going, well, it's not my fault. Well, it's somebody's fault at a certain point, right? Somebody's going to have to deal with it, right? And the judge is going to make that happen. And so, again, right, this is impending. This is coming down the line. These are things that we need to be prepared for. And so for those of you listening at home or listening in your car, if you would like to take the opportunity to have a written financial plan put together just for you, for your individual circumstance, to talk about what taxes you're going to owe in retirement, what you can do to be more tax efficient as you're approaching retirement, making a plan that shows you how much you can spend in retirement comfortably and make sure that that money lasts. If you want to talk about Medicare, Social Security, all of these things, that's all part of the plan that we willingly put together at no cost. It's put together by our team of planners, so don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. We're more than happy to do it for you. Leave your checkbook at home. Give us a call.
Yeah, just sitting on a portfolio is like retiring on a recipe book. You don't have all the ingredients. You really need to have a plan to put this in the oven so it comes out, and that is your retirement. Grab one of these appointments right now. They're no cost. Again, no obligation. 866-668-3625 if you're concerned about rising taxes. And yes, they're going to rise. 866-668-3625. How is your retirement going to handle it? 866-668-3625. No cost, no obligation. We've got more Elevate Your Wealth coming up on the other side. We're going to talk about life events you need to be discussing with your financial professional. That's next. Welcome back in to Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them both at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. 42 years plus combined experience in the retirement planning business. They've helped hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. That's what they do. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure to go back and forth with the gentleman. And again, it's about having the plan, being proactive. Got a website for you. Why don't you check it out? It's a great resource. EFMNW.com. That's all letters. Again, EFMNW.com. Hosts the TV show links are there. You've got radio shows and podcast form. You just got really good information, background information on the team at Elevated Financial Management. EFMNW.com. So you're listening and you're thinking, okay, maybe I need to do something here. I'm sitting on a portfolio. I don't have a plan. Well, we've got an outlet for you. It's a cost-free, no-obligation appointment. All you've got to do is call 866-668-3625. You can call it anytime during the show. That's 866-668-3625. Grab one. We have a limited number. They will go fast. 866-668-3625. So life events you need to be discussing with your financial professional. Gentlemen, this popped up. You saw it. We need to talk about it. So where are we starting first?
This is one, I think the first one is just retirement in general, right? You need to be talking about a plan. The problem is most don't have a plan, but we'd like to encourage the listeners to think about starting this at least 5 years before you plan to pull the lever, right, or pull the parachute. It really gives you a little more runway. What we find can be a little frustrating, not only for clients, but for us as planners, is if they come in a couple days before they want to retire, or they're retiring that week, and they want to be able to do certain things.
What,
right?
That's not enough time? Are you telling me
Sometimes
that's
we
pretty
get a
short runway?
Sometimes we get the I retired last week, and so I'm here to get a plan.
Yeah.
And hey, you know what? That. I mean, at least you're getting a plan, right? But do it in advance, right? Because you got a lot more opportunity for improvement the sooner you do it.
Yeah, and I love this point. It says, this is something everyone listening needs to ask their planner if they have one. How can I strategically withdraw from my savings to last through all of my retirement years? That's something, longevity risk. We talk about that a little bit. That's the risk multiplier. And you need to have a plan to deal with that, because if you don't, very high likelihood that you're probably going to run out of money.
I was
Yeah,
going to
that's-
say, guys, it's almost like it needs to be open-ended. We don't know how long we're going to live. You said
That's
longevity.
yep.
We're living a lot longer, so that
Yep.
costs money.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting too. I think I've said this before, but the longer you live, right? Because medicine keeps getting better, right? So, you know, if at 60 your life expectancy was, let's say, 85, well, if you live then to 70, your life expectancy might now be 88, and then you live to 75, well, now it's 92,
90,
and it just keeps pushing out, right? And so a lot of times people are short-sighted when it comes to the length of how long they need their money to live. They look at mom and dad and, you know, or grandma and grandpa and those kinds of things. But, you know, I'll share something personal here, right? So my great-grandfather died at 50. My grandfather died at 50, and my dad's alive at 71. So, you know, there's no guarantee that you're going to make it to 85, but there's no guarantee that you're not, right?
Right.
So there's truth to both sides of that, and
Yeah, the
a
what
lot
if.
of times people want to play to one side and think, well, I'm not going to have a 30-year retirement, so I can spend more. Well, if you get 25 years into retirement and you spent too much up front, those last 5 years are going to be real rough, right? Yeah. So it's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, see, to go along with what Casey just mentioned, my mom's 91, right?
Right.
Casey knows. And she has been living, you know, kind of bare bones forever because she only had a very small pension from City of Tacoma, right? Her Social Security was pretty low because she started early. So, again, these decisions can follow you. Casey knows the story of my brother. He took a bad choice on his pension, and after his pension went 10 years, it was whacked. You know,
Yeah.
to down, he lost $500 a month, and for him that
lot.
was huge
Yeah.
because he didn't think about those decisions. He made emotionally based decision 10 years earlier. He regrets that now, but it was too late. You can't go back and fix it.
Yep.
See, so we don't. That's what we're talking about for all our listeners. Please, these decisions matter, and you don't want to be doing something that you're going to regret or it's really going to hurt you financially because you didn't think about the possible alternatives.
We're hitting life events. Again, you need to be talking to your advisor about these events because these are going to occur. And as Mark described Casey's painting of the picture, it's like throwing the rock in the pond. They're going to be ripples. So when these events occur, the ripples are coming, and you need to plan for them, right? So what do? Well, first and foremost, sitting on a portfolio is not a plan. We're going to give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. You can talk about some of these events that might be in your near future. And again, this next one, we talked about the first one, that's just retirement. That's a huge change. The next one, what's your Social Security age? When are you going to take Social Security? This is a huge moment.
It is, yeah, it's massive, you know, and it's something that I think gets overlooked by a lot of advisors. You know, that we hear certain anecdotes like, "Well, just take it as early as you can," or "We'll just take it at full retirement age," or "Just wait till 70." Like it's just this blanket statement of accuracy, and it's really not, right? Because it is situational. It is different for each person, and what's the right time for you? A lot of that has to do with the other assets that you have, right? If you don't have enough other assets, well, then taking it early is probably going to be your only choice if you're retiring, right? If you're going to retire at 63 and you don't have any other assets to pull from, it sounds like you probably need to start your Social Security early, right? But if you have other assets that you can take from, how do those things affect each other from a tax efficiency perspective, right? Can we possibly pull down our other accounts, draw from them, and let our Social Security roll up, right? But again, it's all part of a broader plan. And the point there is it's not a one-size-fits-all. And so I love this. It says, ask your financial professional, what age should I consider starting to claim Social Security benefits? And I will just offer one thought. If you ask your advisor that, your retirement planner, and his thought is, I don't really do Social Security, I'm going to pass you off to somebody that does, maybe that's not the right financial planner for your retirement, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a big piece to the puzzle. It really is. And if that advisor cannot answer that question for you, does not have the ability to do so, or is unwilling, it makes me wonder what type of planning they're really doing, because that should be part of the plan. That should absolutely be a part of the plan.
That's a major leg.
It's massive. Yeah. That, for some people, that's the only leg to their retirement
right.
stool, right?
Right.
And so, you know, if you've got other assets with that advisor and they're not helping advise on when to take Social Security, which maybe is 25, 30, 40, 50% of your income for retirement, you really don't have a plan, right? That's what that comes down to.
Yeah, I'd just like to maybe add to this. This is something that our listeners may not know. Everybody wants to tap into Social Security usually before their 401k, but here's an interesting thought. What if you tap into your 401k, you start drawing down on that because Social Security is rolling up at 8%, right? If you, let's say you're 66 and possibly want to extend it to 70, you're going to get 8% on your money for 4 years. You're not guaranteed 8% on your 401k or your IRAs rolling up, and you could be paying tax at the lowest rate you're ever going to see on those dollars. So there's some really cool planning that can be done instead of just making a decision to tap your Social Security first. That's what Casey and I really want our listeners to understand. There's a lot of options if you have other buckets to draw from, but if you don't, Casey's 100% right. You're going to have to draw into Social Security because you don't have any other money. So again, your choices are very limited. But a lot of our clients have a lot of different choices, and that's what we want our listeners to think about.
Well, it's such a conversation piece. Maybe you have it at work. Maybe you're having it with family members, and they've done it a certain way, and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to go do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Folks, have a plan, have a conversation, because this is a big, big moment. When Social Security comes for you, when it's time, and we don't know what that time is, it needs to be planned out. We've used the analogy all the time, of the puzzle. And if you don't have the Social Security piece, that's not a complete puzzle, right? That's not a complete plan. So make sure it's fitting in there together. Now, the opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management ongoing during the course of this show, all you got to do is call 866-668-3625. These are complimentary appointments, no obligation. See where you are with your retirement plan. You're going to walk out with a written financial plan. Again, that's 866-668-3625. Got time for one more this segment, guys. And RMDs, required minimum distribution. This is a big moment for everybody.
Yeah, this is huge. I love the point it says, here, how should I plan my RMD withdrawals to minimize my tax impact? Casey and I talk about the tax torpedo that can be created with RMDs. So what everyone needs to understand is that time that you decide to take RMDs, which we know starts now at 73, and it's going to go up to 75 over the next decade. But the point is, do you have a strategy for those RMD withdrawals? Because if you don't, you could be forced into another higher tax bracket, and some simple planning, which could possibly increase your IRMA. Your IRMA is the tax on Medicare, right? So again, having a strategy is really, really important when you think about this. So please, if you've heard something today, you're worried about your taxes, you're worried about all of these different things, please pick up the phone, give us a call. We're here to help.
Complimentary appointment awaits. Call this number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. No obligation here, folks. This is a written financial plan. See where you are with your planning, 866-668-3625. We've got more life events we need to be discussing, and you need to be discussing with your financial professional, or get one. It's coming up next. Welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. They've got 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping their clients get ready for retirement. Seattle, you can find them at Elevated Financial Management. It is all about getting you ready for what is going to be your postseason, your retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. Morgan Patrick here with you, and it's my pleasure to jump on and talk retirement. And we kind of got into this discussion in our last segment, guys. And that's just life events that you really need to be talking over with your financial professional. And there's so many people out there, and I'm talking directly to our listeners, that have saved so well. Their portfolios hopefully are busting at the seams, right? You've got it in your vehicles, it's working for you, but that's not a retirement plan. And just going over some life events will make you kind of wake up and understand that. A lot's going to happen to your money between now and all the way through your retirement. Make sure you're planning for it. So the actual moment of retirement, huge event. When you decide to pull the trigger on Social Security, how it fits into your overall plan, the required minimum distribution age, and how that's going to impact you. What's the tax implications there moving through retirement? Guys, I'll start with this next one. Maybe there is, you're well into your professional career. You can see retirement, but there's a job change. This is a big life moment, and it's an opportunity here for more planning.
It is. Yeah, it's something that you definitely want to talk about with your advisor. Because if you're, let's say you're 7-8 years from retirement and you're on kind of one trajectory as far as your job goes, and that's the income and savings that has been built into the plan. Well, if you switch jobs and that creates more income that you can then save more for retirement, or maybe you've decided to work part-time before you get to retirement, and so now you have less savings, that does affect the overall plan. And those are things that need to be built in to make sure that you're still heading down the right path towards that ultimate goal. So those are things you want to discuss, as well as the benefits that come along with that job, right? The benefits might be something that it could be good or bad, right? It might be better benefits, so again, you can save more. Or maybe it's not quite as attractive, and so it's costing you more out of pocket or something along those lines. Are you using those benefits to a full? Does your new employer have a Roth 401k when your old employer didn't, right? Those are all things you want to discuss with your planner, as well as maybe now you have the opportunity for an HSA. Maybe you didn't have that opportunity before, right? So these are things that could be improvements, but you want to make sure you talk about them so you're on the same track.
Yeah, one of the big things, too, is you've got to decide what you want to do with your old 401k.
Yeah.
That's a big one, right? You've got to decide where you want to put that money, and possibly you can have a lot of choices if you roll it into your own IRA versus going and rolling it maybe into the new company 401k plan. We would tell you absolutely go the IAR route over the 401k roll. Plan. So again, that's just something to really think about if you do have a job change. The next one that I thought came up would be, maybe you're getting a raise, right? You've gone up the corporate ladder a little bit. You got a nice raise. Well, now the question comes: what do I do with that money that I didn't have before? It's amazing. We talk about how we live on what our income is, right, Case? We say this all the time. But now you just got, let's say you got a 10% increase in your job, a really nice bonus. What do you do with that money? See, you've been living on that lower amount. Why not do something towards your retirement that's really going to benefit you in the long run, instead of maybe just going and adding a bunch of more just stuff to your house, your garage, whatever you want to do? Something to really think about here.
Guys, I was just going to say, this sounds like, when you're talking about life events and you need to have these conversations with your financial professional, and let's say it's you guys at Elevated Financial Management, it sounds like a partnership to me. It sounds like it's not just an appointment every year where you go over your statements. That's not what this sounds like. This sounds like a partnership, because you're talking about life moments and how that's going to impact the overall plan.
Yeah, and I love you saying that, because for us, we call it, this is where the rubber meets the road. There's a lot of emotional things that we feel very privileged to be a part of our clients' lives about. These are decisions that can have a long-lasting effect. So there's so much more to true retirement planning that we do versus just worrying about numbers and statements and portfolios. There's so much more that goes into this.
There is, and it's like you said, Morgan, right? It really is a partnership. And I think that throws people off sometimes, right? I think they're used to only talking about what type of returns they're getting or what type of returns they'd like to get, that kind of thing, with their financial person. But really, these are all things that need to be discussed with whoever is creating a retirement plan for you, right? I mean, this has got to be talked about. What you're saving, could you save more? Your career has changed. A lot of times, and this is great, we love this, clients have started to understand that we are here for these types of things.
Yeah.
And so actually, before making a career change, they come talk to us about it, right? Or before starting a business, they come and talk to us about it. Do I have the ability to do that? What could it look like? And not only that, but Mark and I are business owners ourselves, right? So we have experience down that path. So, it becomes more consultative in that way. And we really do work to be involved in many aspects of people's lives, not just the finance, but what's the emotional toll that this is going to take? How does it affect the family? Those kinds of things. So it's important.
I mean, so many people are listening and they're just sitting on a portfolio and they're like, wow. I mean, I've had several of these life events and I haven't even thought about adjusting or having a conversation about what I'm doing with my portfolio because you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity right now to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, have this type of conversation, and you can do it at no obligation. There's no price tag to this. You're leaving the checkbook at home. Call this number, secure one of the appointments, 866-668-3625. Think about the life events you're going through right now, or they're right there on the horizon. Are you ready for it? Is your portfolio ready for it? Is your plan ready for it? 866-668-3625. Call now. So, guys, again, there's some big life moments, health changes.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think about it. But it's coming for all of us.
It is. And this is a big one. This is really something that your plan needs to change if your health changes, right? And we see this a lot. And here's the thing. It's not just when life changes or health changes in a massive way, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a cancer diagnosis for this to be a part of the conversation. But if your health changes in such a way that it's going to affect your retirement, maybe you're not going to be able to travel like you had wanted to, or maybe it's going to affect your current employment. Maybe you're looking at it going, man, it'd be nice to retire sooner. Because, think my health isn't as good as I thought it was, right? Or as I want it to be. And, we actually met with a couple this last week. They live in Ocean Shores, if I remember correctly. And, it was really important. The husband has had some health issues, and the wife got a little emotional talking about it. And she said, I know we've planned on retiring 2 years from now, but I want him to retire right now because I just don't know how much time we're going to have. And I want to spend the time together. And we have a number of clients like that. And so, again, these are all things that you want to discuss and make sure that your finances are fitting your life, right? Instead of looking at this going, well, I was going to work 3 more years, and so I'm just going to keep on that same path. Maybe it's time to consider making an adjustment to let you retire earlier. Maybe your priorities have changed, and your health, a big health change can sometimes drive that difference in your mind to want to make a change to how you're doing things.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. I've got a client that was going to work 5 more years, and they came in, and I could just tell by their demeanor something was wrong, right? He had just got diagnosed with a very aggressive form of prostate cancer. So I know. But it was like a light switch.
Yeah.
And they immediately are changing. They're not going to, he's stopping work right now. They are, like Casey mentioned, they want to start doing things together because they don't know how much longer he has. So these type of events, this planning that we do, it's very fluid because things happen to all of us. And we just, with somebody that you can help you, guide you through some of these very emotional things, can really be such a benefit. I wanted to touch on one more, marriage, for a second. We've got some clients who were just in. They keep their finances completely separate. The wife and the husband, it's a second marriage, of course. They do that. But I love the question is, what should we consider if we're going to merge our assets together? So, again, you need to have some thinking done on this subject, right, Case? We know this can be very emotional for people, and if you don't really think about that, maybe you're going to get married, a second marriage, you lost a spouse, there can be some trepidation about how do we handle our finances going forward if you don't have a plan.
Yeah, that really does have to be considered, right? If it's a new marriage or a second marriage or whatever the circumstance is, and how do you want to set up beneficiaries, right? If you're 60 years old getting married, let's say, and it's a second marriage, you both have children from a previous marriage, how are those beneficiaries going to be set up? Right? That's a very important piece to the puzzle. You're merging 2 lives together, so at what point do you merge it 100%, including all of the finances, or is there a bit of a delineation there? And either one is okay, but it's a conversation that you need to have, right? And the other side of that coin is also here too is divorce, right? If you get divorced, that's something that you need to talk about with your financial advisor too, because that does change the trajectory that you're on, especially from a tax perspective, or how are your pensions going to be set up, assets split, and of course your advisor doesn't determine all of those things, but can help you make good decisions when it comes to those. Something else that was here that I thought was really good was an inheritance, right? So if you receive an inheritance, that's definitely something you want to talk about with your advisor, but sometimes it gets missed, right? Because we think, it's not a big inheritance, it's like $20,000 or something. Maybe it's not this massive number, but that's still something that you should talk about with your advisor, because there may be details to that about how it's going to affect your taxes when you inherit that money, or if you go to spend that money, how does that affect you tax-wise? There's things to consider. So if you've got questions on all these items, these are things that you haven't talked about with your advisor, or maybe you've talked about them with your advisor and haven't gotten answers that you expected or that were sufficient enough. This is your opportunity to sit down, have a custom tailored conversation based solely on your individual circumstance, and walk away with a written financial plan at no cost. We will talk about all of these life events. We'll talk about taxes, the risks that you're taking, how you can create income. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call now.
Yeah, the key, customized to you. And this is an opportunity at no cost, no obligation. Call this number now. You're going to walk out with a written financial plan, Elevated Financial Management, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Again, the appointment is complimentary. We've got scenarios coming up on the other side. I'll throw them at the gentleman. We'll see what they come up with. That's all next. Welcome back. It's Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. And that's exactly where you can find Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins, our hosts. They've got 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping their clients get ready for retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. The website's a wonderful resource. Check it out, efmnw.com, all letters, efmnw.com. Links to the TV show and our radio shows are in podcast form there for you, but just really good information on elevated financial management and retirement. Again, Morgan Patrick with you. Love going back and forth with the gentleman, and now we are into our scenarios, and I always preface scenarios with, you may hear a scenario, and they're all from around the country, that's close to what you're going through, but it's not exactly what you're going through. So make sure you have a customized plan. We'll give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. You can get that ball rolling, no cost, no obligation. So listen up for that. So first scenario, gentlemen, here it is. They're in their early 60s. They're healthy now, but they watched a parent burn through savings due to a long-term care cost. So how do you weigh the cost of long-term care insurance against the risk of needing it later? Mark?
Yeah, this is something that hits home for me, because I watch this happen with my grandparents, my grandfather on my dad's side, and they burned through everything they had from a liquid standpoint when he went in the nursing home when he was 91 years old. The issue was he lived another almost 6.5, close to 7 years. And so this does hit home, and we talk about this with every client that comes through, because everybody, the bulk, will say, well, it's really expensive, and I just will look at them and say, compared to what? Right now, a nice facility in Federal Way is running close to $14,000 a month. So again, if my premium is $7,000 for the year, that would cover you for 2 weeks. Right? That's what you have to think about. But there's some other very unique ways to cover this cost. We really like the hybrid life insurance route. There's one company that will allow you to use qualified money to do a lump sum and not have to pay the tax on all of it up front. In year one, we can spread the tax liability over 10 years. And so you get some leverage. And that is really, really an important thing. What I love about the hybrid life insurance policies, if you're fortunate enough and you don't end up needing it, you basically get the premium back. Now, you don't, right, because you have to die for that to happen, but your family, your children, your estate is going to get that back in the way of a death benefit. If you buy a standalone plan, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? Just like car insurance. If we never have a claim, we don't get our premiums back just because we were great, safe drivers. It doesn't work that way. Right. So again, there's some different ways that we can help our clients with that. And I know Casey's got another thought.
Yeah, it's if you got that coverage and then you never need it, you never end up using it, which is what we hope for everybody, right? We hope that you never need it. But if you never end up using it, the money goes right back to where it would have gone in the first place, right? I mean, that's really what this boils down to. And I think that really is important, because sometimes what we see is people will, let's say you've created income for retirement, you've got plans, you're living your life, those kinds of things, but you have this bucket of money kind of off to the side, and that's like your just in case dollars, right? And that's okay. But that's also supposed to cover your long-term care. Well, what happens is that money ends up sitting there, and instead of spending it, you end up just letting it sit there because you're worried about covering long-term care. So maybe it's a $500,000 account or something, right? And it just kind of sits there forever. Well, if you never end up spending it, who's it end up going to? Your beneficiaries, okay? All right, that makes sense. But what if you could have taken $200,000 of that, purchased a long-term care plan, and gotten $500,000 or $600,000 worth of long-term care? It only cost you $200,000. Now you've got a bucket over there of $300,000, and you can actually go spend that $300,000 because you don't need to hang on to it for long-term care, because you've already taken care of that issue. And then if you never use the long-term care, that $200,000 goes back to your beneficiaries anyways, right? So it's a more efficient use of the money. You're getting leverage on the dollars, and emotionally, it allows you to go live more retirement. And that's what all of this comes down to. So, sometimes we see people kind of hung up on long-term care a little bit. They don't like the idea of it. And you know what? I understand. I get why you don't like the idea. It's probably twofold. Number one, it really isn't fun to talk about, right? Nobody wants to talk about their own mortality and face that. Number two, everybody's used to the standalone policies like Mark was talking about, where you pay $500 a month for 25 years, you never use it, and then nobody gets anything except the insurance company kept all the money, right? Well, that's not fun. That's not the type of long-term care that I want you to have either, right? If you can qualify for something else. So, but again, it all comes down to having a discussion and having a conversation about what is doable in your circumstance. And that might be doable in yours, and it might not, but you got to have the conversation to figure it out.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Come in and ask questions, get those questions answered, and then move forward. You're educated on it. The opportunity to grab one of these complimentary appointments, it's ongoing during the course of this show, and you can meet with Elevated Financial Management, talk about your retirement situation, your own scenario. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. All right, next scenario. Casey, we'll start with you on this one. They retired 3 years ago. $5,000 a month drawdown would be enough, according to this. But inflation has eaten into their travel and discretionary spending. What should retirees do if their original budget no longer fits today's cost of living?
Sounds like it's time to revise. That's really it in a nutshell, right? It's time to figure out, do we have the assets to create more income, or do we need to start spending less, right? Those are the two decisions you can make. I guess maybe the third option is, do I want to come out of retirement and go get a part-time job? But I think the answer to that is typically no, right? Now, some people might enjoy that, right? We talk about hybrid retirements all the time. But if you're already 5-6 years into retirement and you've been enjoying not working, then now would be the time. If this is the circumstance for you, inflation, your spending is not keeping up with inflation, that kind of thing, it's time to revise, to figure out what else can be done. Can I spend more in retirement? And then to consider, too, maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe it's, okay, I can spend a little bit more, but I need to be more efficient with the money that I'm already spending, right? So maybe I need to cut back a little bit. Maybe we don't do 4 or 5 trips for the year. Maybe we just kind of do 2 and they're kind of bigger trips, or, maybe we can do it on a little bit smaller budget, or, whatever that circumstance is. But again, it comes down to a conversation, right? You got to go talk with your advisor. We talked about life events in the last couple segments that justify, or not justify, but you should be talking about with your advisor. This is absolutely one of them, right? This is time to have that conversation with your advisor. We're not keeping up with our spending as far as inflation goes. What can we do? Is there something that we can do? And if there isn't, well, then it's time to start figuring out how you can spend less, right? That might be the decision that you're backed into. The other side is there may be the potential for certain benefits that are available to retirees that are not available to everybody else, right? Like there's certain things that can be done for taxes on your home, depending on your income level and items like that. But again, a discussion, right? A conversation about your specific circumstance and what you can specifically do.
Yeah, see, something that could, a lot of people have misunderstandings about this is where a reverse mortgage could be a tool that could be implemented. We don't know, and we're not saying reverse mortgages are for everybody, but in the right circumstance,
Sure,
they can be a game changer for people. I know. I want one done on my house. So, again, this is something that people need to understand, really, the pros and cons, but they can really create some income, possibly, if that's what's needed. Use some of the equity in your home while you're alive. Right? Instead of having it tied up and not using it and then passing it on to your children. Now, if you want the home as just an inheritance, that's a different story. But that, again, could be a really powerful tool that can be used in the right situation.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, different strokes for different folks.
Yep.
I mean, everybody's different, and you really need to plan this out. Everybody's going to have their own scenario. We go over these scenarios at the end of every program. Gives you an idea that, a lot of people are going through probably close to some of the same things you are. So make sure you have a plan. Last one we have time for. Mark, we'll start with you on this one. They're in their early 60s, living off savings, not yet taking Social Security, and considering converting about $50K from a traditional IRA to a Roth this year. How should someone time Roth conversions to max long-term benefits?
Yeah, this is something that does take a lot of figuring out, a lot of calculations. There is definitely not a one-size-fits-all. We kind of need more information. We need to know how much room you might have to do what we call bracket stuffing. I know right now a couple that is married filing jointly, and the 24% bracket can basically make up to $384,000 and change each year. So if you're making $200,000, you might have room to convert another $180,000, but that doesn't mean you should do that, right? So again, this is one of these areas where you have to be careful. You really need to know the time frame, what's the ultimate goal for that money, the purpose of it, and whether it's going to make sense to kind of do that.
Right, and that conversion, it sounds really good, but is it the right thing for everybody?
Yeah.
The short answer to that is no, it's not, right? It's not the right thing in every circumstance. And so, you don't want to do a conversion if it's not actually going to benefit you, or if the benefit is going to take 10, 12, 15 years to pay off. There's a consideration to be had for that too, about when does it benefit you at what point in your life, right? If it's benefiting you, much later in life, that may not be worth the pain that you would experience with that right now, right? So again, it's part of a broader conversation.
If you've been listening to the show and we just want to have a conversation, I want you to leave your checkbook at home. Maybe you're getting ready to retire from Boeing or any of our other wonderful companies in our area. Please pick up the phone. You got a question about Roth conversion or taxes or long-term care, as we've been talking about. Any of these issues that are causing you to have big questions, maybe not knowing what to do, we highly recommend just pick up the phone. Let our team help you put together a plan. And we want you to know you're going to leave your checkbook at home. We're just going to have a conversation. That's it. So please, because we don't know if we're going to take you on as a client, and you don't know if you're going to want us to help you. So again, pick up the phone and give us a call. We're here to help.
It's like a test drive, and again, it's complimentary. Again, Elevated Financial Management offering these appointments, no cost, no obligation. 866-668-3625. That number again, 866-668-3625. Going to walk out with a written financial plan, see how you're doing with your retirement. 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle, is in the books. For Mark and Casey, I'm Morgan. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.